Welcome back to another episode of dimecomicbros podcast. I'm your host, Jacob. Back from my loot grind that definitely didn't mess up any of our plans at all.
It never does.
Under this whole entire network of shows.
No, nothing has ever happened.
You would know about that if you listen to our other show, Dime Comic Bros podcast, made every week with our friend Colin.
With lots of love and care, apparently.
No, there's a lot of hate and anger. That's why we call ourselves brothers.
This is true. It's the glue that holds us together, otherwise the hatred would be overwhelming. Jacob was originally planning, or attempting, to play the same game as me this month.
I was supposed to.
We were going to have a whole joint big thingamajiggy bobber.
But it turns out I really hate this game.
Yeah, and it just not doing too hot. So he has diverted his attention elsewhere.
Yes. So while I was on my loot grind of life, I was stuck in a hotel room a lot. And I was facing my Switch, wondering what I was going to do. So, here's what I did. Diablo 3 is a game much like Doom in that your character's single mission is to destroy all evil. It's fitting then that this game is developed by the evil company Activision Blizzard. Originally released in 2012 for PC, it was soon released on PS3 and the Xbox 360 in 2013, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in 2014, and finally the Switch in 2018. The story is placed 20 years after the happenings of Diablo II. Deckard Cain is quickly killed off, leaving his niece Leah, and eventually her mom, in his place to say ambiguous weird things about the story. A star falls from the sky, but it turns out to be an angel that didn't want to be an angel anymore. There's a black rock that could be what defeats the power of hell if the souls of the lords of hell could be captured and put into the rock, but there's lots of people talking at me during the story that say maybe it isn't a good idea to put so many of hell's royalty into one rock. To be honest, the story almost always feels like it's just there for set dressing. We're getting tired of the dark green forested area. Let's say something with a couple characters and suddenly be in a bright desert setting. Some characters are bad, so when they surprise you and say, actually, hail Satan, ha ha ha, it felt like it should have meant more, but I barely shrugged because I knew it was just going to be another boss battle. The edition I have came bundled with the Reaper of Souls DLC, which adds a 5th act to the story, as well as another playable class and a bunch of other cool things. I had forgotten that the end of the DLC literally says, oh no, Diablo is freed again. Thanks for playing. Like, that's how it ends. I can pull it up for you. It's so funny. It is comical how quickly it ends and how shamelessly they opened themselves up for another game. For visuals, this playthrough I did on my Switch, but always on the home dock, not as a portable. I meant to change that yesterday and for gore, because I was trying to finish Callisto Protocol so that I could not cover Diablo 3 and make you change the thumbnail yet again, but it didn't work out. The beautiful cinematics at the beginning of each act were chopped down in visual quality. They would often look blocky as things moved across the screen. The only caveat could be I was playing on a hotel TV, so it could have been the TV itself. I'm not quite sure. Besides that, in-game action looked great. I hardly had any lag at all. Maybe like once, maybe, and it was not much. Sound design. I want to start out by saying that the voice acting in this game is spectacular. Having played this game before a couple of different times, it felt nice to come back and find that the voices were just as I remembered them. They add so much to the atmosphere of the game. Deckard is an old man who could tell you legends for hours by the fire. Covetous Shen sounds like a greaseball, but a lovable greaseball. Miriam is an older woman that talks to you way too much, but that kind of adds to the charm. She seems like the old gossip, so a lot of her ceaseless talking helps add to the world building. But that brings me to one of the problems I have with this game. If you really care about the story, you should travel back to town often and check to see if any of the NPCs have that magical blue asterisk over their head. I don't travel back to town unless I have to sell all the crap I'm carrying, or that's where the next story objective is. So each character will have 4, 5, maybe even 6 topics that they want to talk at you about. I've said before, I love to have a game that I can keep the volume real low on and listen to a podcast or music and just chill. This is that kind of game for me. I've played through it before twice, I think. So this is just a vibe game now. I'd say about halfway through, I was getting pretty tired of the same couple lines my character or my partner would say after a battle. A glorious victory! Or something stupid like that. It's like, dude, it was 15 enemies. Like, calm down. The sound in general got pretty repetitive. I also had a problem where my characters saying their canned lines in battle were loud, but when the characters were talking story stuff, it was really hard to hear. I tried messing with the surprisingly deep sound options, but never made it any better. Gameplay. What do I need to say? It's Diablo. An isometric view of the game world and your character. You run around completing quests and leveling up to become a demon-slaying badass that eventually destroys the powers of hell. This playthrough, I played as a monk because I wasn't familiar with that playstyle. It's hard to put words to it, but I guess a monk is a very spiritual melee fighter. It's like if someone wanted to play as Iron Fist in a Diablo game. A lot of punches, a lot of buffs for my character and whomever was fighting alongside. There are some crazy abilities. I think there was one called a Punch of 1,000 Fists or something like that, where my character would zoom around in a flurry and deal a lot of damage in a short time in a small bubble. Previous playthroughs, I've played as a necromancer, which I remember being very fun, and a wizard. And I think there's one more, but I don't remember. Enemies vary from beasts to tree monsters, ghosts to shadow demons. The game starts by giving you 1 or 2 enemies, and by the end you are jumping into a literal sea of enemies. I found very late into the game that if I clicked one of the thumbsticks in, it would highlight my character so that I could find myself in the fray. I just thought that was kind of funny. There's a kill counter. The higher the number, the higher the XP multiplier for that battle. I wonder if there's a system running behind the scenes that keeps that to a limit. I had an ability to zoom forward, so I would work really hard to like chain battles together and like space the enemies out, like leading further into the room, and then I would zoom further into the dungeon 3 times and not find any enemies, and the cooldown would run out. The cooldown timer seemed wonky too. It felt like it would cool down almost instantly once I hit like 70-ish kills, but I could hold 15 kills for quite a while. It's not a deal breaker, it was just really frustrating. It didn't feel fair. There are a lot of special encounters you can find. These are named enemies with either a blue or a yellow highlight on their name and on their model. These are stronger enemies that have a higher chance of dropping better loot than regular enemies. Honestly, once you get halfway through the game, they don't really drop anything you need. I didn't understand all the hate for Diablo 3 for a very long time. As I've said, I've played a bunch of times and I enjoy my time with it. Right before this playthrough, I watched a great video made by Indigo Gaming, Spencer will link it here,
maybe,
that explained I have it linked in my review actually, so if you just share my review, it's already there.
Fuck you.
That video explained the complicated development of this game and a ton of promises of features Blizzard made and then flat out broke. There was supposed to be so much in this game, and eventually they cut a lot out and made a game that was passable. One of the biggest takeaways I had from the video is how the skill trees work. You have keys to press to trigger certain abilities, but Blizzard designed this game to be very limited. So on a controller, the B button can be only one of 4 abilities. But when you assign the X button, again, it's one of 4 abilities, but they are all very different abilities from the B button choices. It's a very odd choice. I have to assume it's because of balance. It is extremely limiting in a game series known for having so many build options. Also, your health potion has unlimited uses now. It's not bound by pickups and item management like in past games, but it has a cooldown. Speaking of controllers, this was my first time playing this game with one. I'm surprised by how well Diablo works with a controller, which is a conspiracy about its development. The entire design was most likely simplified so that the game would work on consoles. It's cool having the right... It's also cool having the right stick dedicated to making my character roll away. I don't think that's an option on PC. There are many different difficulties to play: normal, hard, expert, master, and then 16 torment levels. Torment 1, Torment 2, Torment 3. I love how each level of difficulty tells you bonuses you get for playing them. For example, expert gave me 320% health, 180% damage, 100% extra gold bonus, 100% extra XP bonus. Expert felt easy. I was deleting bosses very quickly, so I kicked it up to master for a minute and I got destroyed by a named monster. I think he was a yellow one in a special encounter. There was one boss I had to attempt 5-ish times. It resulted in me changing my build from extremely offensive to extremely defensive. After changing my build, I beat him in the first try and then immediately kicked everything back to extremely offensive. I really didn't have any challenge after that. I actually forgot to change my build before fighting Diablo, and I still, wiped away his health very quickly. It was less than 5 minutes, less than a couple minutes. So in closing, I won't go so far as to say that this is a comfort game, but it's nice having something quick and easy to grind loot in and just veg listening to a podcast. This playthrough probably lasted me 8 hours-ish, split up over 3 or 4 days. I'll probably leave it downloaded on my Switch in case I want to play as a different character, but I really don't want to go through the story again for a while. There's just nothing interesting about it, especially after hearing it several times now.
Fair.
I got this game bundled with Diablo 2 on Switch for $20. So I can say I got all of Diablo 3, including the DLC, for $10, technically.
That's a shitdeal.
That's a pretty good deal. I really can't say that's a bad price, but there are some caveats. There are better Diablo-like games than Diablo 3. The Diablo community loves Diablo 2. I have yet to have a character not get deleted somehow. I've tried twice. I personally love Grim Dawn, but even Path of Exile is free, and there's so much to it. It almost feels like jumping into an MMO. There's just so much going on. It overwhelms me trying to understand how much progression is available. But also it's nice having a portable Diablo that isn't an app, that's actually just a money-sucking machine created by a company run by the powers of hell.
Oddly specific scenario for you to just drop like that.
Immortal is bad.
I don't even know what you're talking about. That's not a real game.
What?
That never happened.
Right.
So since you mentioned that you like to veg out and listen to podcasts, and we are in fact doing a podcast because we are boring white guys with no personalities.
Are we really? I thought I was telling you.
Well, yeah, that too. Was there anything in particular that you listened to during this playthrough, or anything you would like to drop as a recommendation just for shits and giggles?
I listened to a lot of the Black Sheep podcast, which is a couple of HM Magazine guys interviewing a bunch of metal musicians. It's a lot of musicians that I listen to and have listened to for a long time, and it's kind of interesting just hearing from those people and what they do and their take on their music. It's kind of helpful.
That's cool.
And then I also caught up on Weekly Planet podcast because that's default podcast.
That is pretty much always in the mood for that one.
I don't think this has ever been said on air. I actually want to mail them soon and tell them this, but long ago, when we were considering making a podcast, our first one, I listened to maybe 3 episodes of Weekly Planet, and I was like, this is easy. We can do this. I know what I'm doing. And here we are 3 years later, and we still have
basic tech
audio
problems,
technical difficulties. Yeah,
we're very intelligent creatures.
But we have 2 podcasts now, and 2 listeners, and
yeah, we have 2 people. They stalk
2
us.
2 people and your mom. So
it is my mom. She's not a real person.
Oh,
she's only 77% of a full person. So going to the news now.
Oh, we're doing news first.
Why not? From Polygon.com, Swedish gaming conglomerate Embracer Group, which has been rapidly gobbling up game studios and popular IP over the past few years, will undergo a major restructuring that will require the publisher to close multiple studios and cancel several games. The news comes weeks after it was reported that
Can I interject? It's funny when you're reading the news because you hang on to the last word of some sentences, just like the reporter Takanawa from Family Guy. I finally just made that connection. I've heard it so many times before, and I'm like, that sounds familiar. That's why.
That's so
You
funny.
are Trish Takanawa.
That's really funny because I don't watch that much Family Guy. I know who you're talking about, but I don't. That's so odd. The news comes weeks after it was reported that a deal worth $2 billion in income to the company had unexpectedly fallen through. CEO Lars
Winger.
Swedish people, man, announced the restructuring in an open letter alongside an investor webcast and a news release. He said the restructure is split into 3 phases and it is expected to continue until March 2024. The nature of these phases is unclear and under the general guise of cost savings and consolidation to reduce debt below 10 billion Swedish krona, which equals roughly 930 million USD. Matthew Karch, the now former Saber Interactive CEO and current interim chief operating officer, said, however, that the first phase of cost saving will be immediate and noticeable. This means that an unknown number of Embracer Group's 17,000 staff will be laid off as a part of the process. Neither Wingefers nor Embracer Group have detailed when specific closures or layoffs will happen. Embracer Group owns the rights to both Tomb Raider and Lord of the Rings. It acquired Tomb Raider when it purchased Eidos, Crystal Dynamics, and Square Enix Montreal from Square Enix in 2022. We discussed that on this podcast. That year, Embracer Group bought the licensing rights to The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit by buying rights holder Middle-earth Enterprises. Early this year, Embracer announced that it has 5 mystery Lord of the Rings games in development by external partners. Following the announcement, Crystal Dynamics put out a statement on Twitter to confirm that neither its upcoming Tomb Raider game nor Perfect Dark will be impacted by the restructuring.
5 Lord of the Rings games? That's a lot.
Yes. So...
Especially since the last one sucked balls.
True. So this is a lot to kind of dive into. I had to trim down the article because there was a lot of stuff from this one, and obviously it's being translated from Swedish. So there's some moderate confusion on some stuff. My big takeaway is this is why you need to stop consolidating so many big fucking companies, because when something implodes, it's never good for the people working there. When monopolization happens and some person or group of people or company gets a larger portion of a subsection of whether it's manufacturing or producing stuff or whatever business field they're in, the wealth goes up and then people lose jobs. No matter how it goes, whenever your company gets bought out by a bigger company, you never get more jobs. You always get less jobs because the economy of scale is more efficient when it gets bigger. And it's not just manufacturing when it comes to video games. It's more complicated than that, but it's still that's how the money works. So this is cringe. Big L.
17,000 people losing their jobs is cringe.
It's not. It's a portion of their 17,000, but still, the fact that they immediately said you're gonna notice. At least they're being honest about it, but also geez, This is why you shouldn't be hedging all your bets on like these massive deals between huge conglomerates, because it will fall through. I mean, I've been trying to not include quite so much about it, but like the Activision Blizzard merger buyout crap, and then the Bethesda Microsoft stuff is also getting kind of torn to shreds right now, and may or may not be following through on, because like it's horrible for the industry for the most part. Some of it is cool in the long term, where it's like, we'll discuss some of it later, where it's like, oh cool, this game is coming to this console. That's cool. Like, it's nice, I guess, that they mentioned that Tomb Raider's not getting affected, and they confirmed how many Lord of the Rings games are in development, which is insane. But also the fact that you feel the need to cover your ass by like ensuring gamers nothing's changing is like, that just kind of tells you that the consumers are fucking horrible anyways, and they don't care that people are losing their jobs. Like, cringe. That's cringe. Gamers are cringe. You hear that, gamers? Go kiss your mom. She loves you and misses you.
Stop yelling at our listeners. Both of them.
True.
From Polygon.com. Prince of Persia's unexpected return to its side-scrolling platforming roots continues to impress. Following its announcement at Summer Game Fest, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown got an extensive gameplay reveal that could even make it the sleeper hit of the Ubisoft Forward showcase. The combos, juggles, wall jumping, and jump dashing all have their traditions in gameplay more than 30 years old now, and the semi-open world built here properly honors them rather than trying to interpret that in a new playing space. Following an indefinite delay in 2021, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Times remake has since been palmed off on Ubisoft Montreal, which literally went back to the drawing board on the idea. So maybe the Lost Crown stealing the show is a good thing. This doesn't have to be overthought. Sometimes what seems like the simplest execution is actually the most correct. That's why the French made guillotines.
Yes, French Canadians. I see what you did there. Smart.
Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown launches January 18th, 2024 on Amazon Luna, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Windows PC, Xbox One, and Series X.
I have very mixed feelings on this one. I don't buy Ubisoft games anymore. That's just a me thing. I can't get behind a lot of their stuff.
Salty Assassin's Creed fan.
That's some of it, yeah. No, like, it is. I was really involved in particularly the Assassin's Creed fan base, so it was very wrapped up in the Ubisoft internal politicking and like blah blah blah, whatever. I really like Prince of Persia, but also the Sands of Time remake did look really shit when they revealed it 2 years ago, so it's a good thing it got delayed, and it's nice that they're going back to like a 2.5D side scroller. But also, I really don't like the graphical style at all.
It seems like they're making a Metroidvania.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yes.
Because there aren't enough of those.
True.
I don't know. It seems fine. It could be fun for sure. It looks legit.
It definitely looks more like a real game than the remake does, which is bad. Like, that's by comparison.
I don't know anything of this game series. I've never played any of it.
Most of them are really good. There was a reboot in 2008 that more like a reimagining, which bombed, but like I really like. It's a very weird reinterpretation of it. But like Prince of Persia basically died so Assassin's Creed could live. You know. But it since then it's been struggling to even come back to like the public, like to any game release at all.
I was telling Spencer before we started recording, I had to pull up the trailer and watch it. I had been meaning to do research on this before we did the show, but because I kept getting like little reminders on Reddit or whatever, but I saw this fantastic meme of someone bitching about how the Prince of Persia looks in this game, and was like, he doesn't look like Prince of Persia, and someone took like every single Prince of Persia and put them side by 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 side. It was like, really? Like, I looked at it and it was like every single one of them looked completely different. It was crazy how different it looked. So it's like, who cares what he looks like?
Yeah, it's not a continuity heavy series whatsoever.
It was so funny.
There's a trilogy of games that were a lot more connected than the other ones, but they're all pretty
It even included Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, we're gonna be getting to that movie at some point in the semi-nearish future.
I remember liking it when I first saw it.
I don't hate it.
Yeah, me either.
Everything about it smells really racist, but it is,
What is the smell of racism?
They're all like British white people playing Middle Eastern people. Yeah, it's just got that. It's got that
tea.
Yeah, it smells like tea and unspiced food. From StarWars.com, Massive Entertainment, Ubisoft, and Lucasfilm Games pulled back the curtain on the first ever open-world Star Wars game, Star Wars Outlaws, releasing in 2024 on Xbox Series, PlayStation 5, and PC. Set between the events of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, players will step into the role of Kay Vess, a clever scoundrel in the galactic underworld. In Outlaws, Kay is looking to attempt one of the biggest heists the Outer Rim has ever seen, all in an effort to start a new life. It's a dream come true to be able to collaborate with the team at Lucasfilm Games to create Outlaws, the first open-world Star Wars game. Julian Garridy, creative director at Massive Entertainment, tells StarWars.com. Our team at Massive Entertainment has a great deal of experience in open-world games backed by strong technology, and it's the perfect time to tell an original scoundrel story that will resonate with fans. With the Galactic Empire on the heels of the Rebel Alliance and the criminal underworld thriving, an outlaw like Kay Vess has a whole galaxy of opportunity in front of her. Okay, Jacob, I'm gonna be cringe here for a moment, because I think you've seen the memes. The droid looks fuckable. It's weird, because it's a commando droid. It has no hips, but it looks fuckable.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This does look really good.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of came out of left field, because it was announced that Ubisoft was working on this a while ago, and they had clearly already been working on it for a couple of years, but like, it seems to have pulled some, I would say assets, because I highly doubt they would do that, but like definitely some of the things that people were looking forward to with that bounty hunter game that got canceled a couple of years ago. Like, they're entirely different developers, so it clearly wasn't like, we sent our files over to the other guys, but like definitely the vibe. The open world bit, of course, makes me nervous, because it always does. But, I mean, Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor are somewhere in that semi-linear, they're technically kind of open, and I don't remember how much they marketed those on the open worldness. I just don't remember, because I don't pay that much attention, despite what this show would tell you. So it could be like that. Like, I haven't gotten into Jedi Survivor yet. I'm assuming the world is a bit bigger and more explorable than Fallen Order, and like, that seems fine to call an open world. Like, just don't, it doesn't look like they're trying to market it like a Ubisoft game.
Right.
Despite the fact that it is a Ubisoft game. So,
I don't know.
It looks like it's being published by Ubisoft, but it was developed by Massive Entertainment. So, looks good. The graphics look nice. The cutscenes look cool. She looks hot. I'm in.
The vehicle looked good.
I love vehicles. Star Wars vehicles.
Star Wars. From news.xbox.com. We at Obsidian Entertainment know players have been anticipating an updated look at Avowed, and we're excited to show off what we've been working on with a first ever gameplay trailer at Xbox Games Showcase 2023. Expanding the universe that we created for the original Pillars of Eternity games, Avowed brings a new perspective, a new way to fight, and a new land to explore in the world of Eora. The Pillars games are near and dear to us, and we can't wait to share Avowed with everyone next year. In Avowed, you'll explore the Living Lands, a plagued wild island set in the world of Eora. The Living Lands are full of mysteries and secrets, danger and adventure, and choice and consequences. First-person combat has been a huge focus for us. We've incorporated a host of ways for players to fight the flora and fauna of the living lands. You will have swords, shields, pistols, magical spells, and more at your disposal, including the ability to dual wield, creating a vast number of combinations to choose from. Avowed will be released in 2024 on Xbox Series X and S, Windows 10, 11, and Steam. It will also be available on day one with Xbox Game Pass and PC Game Pass. So I had to check with Spencer about Obsidian Entertainment because that is the company that made arguably the best Fallout, New Vegas, and then kind of got pushed to the wayside, and they said, fine, we'll do it ourselves. And they made The Outer Worlds, which I really liked. I watched the trailer, and I think it looks very Skyrim-y. It looks very, very, very Elder Scrolls.
Yes, I think
I think Obsidian is just trying to be the new Bethesda and just do everything better.
I don't disagree with you on that one. It definitely, I trimmed out a lot of what was in here for the sake of brevity, but they're clearly aware of, like, that's the vibe they're going for, which, on the one hand, I don't really like the Elder Scrolls that much, and definitely not Skyrim. We've harped on this 1,000 times. But also, Elder Scrolls 6 is still like 5 years out. So if in the meantime another at least good game comes and goes, I'm fine with that. And
so you're saying we've harped on not liking Skyrim as many times as it's been re-released?
True. Probably more. And it does look graphically more solid. It looks up, it looks good. It looks solid. It's a type of gameplay I do appreciate, that really, like, kind of old school stiff RPG thing. Like, I do like that. It's not my favorite thing, but, like, I wouldn't even really say a soft spot. Just, like, I don't know. Sometimes when you're in the right mood, that gets really nice. It's cool to have games that aren't so dressed up that they forget where they came from in terms of, like, the architecture of the game. Like, they're not so animation focused, where the fact that it's lines of fucking code that were based off of, like, text-based games, it doesn't lose that, like, connection to it.
When they cast spells and when they were shooting, I thought it looked really cool and it could be fun. But then the melee combat, like swinging a sword, was like, oh, yeah, this is Skyrim. Yeah,
it definitely looks a little rough on the gameplay side, but I appreciate the aesthetic for that. Like, if you're going to go with this style of open world RPG game, differentiating its aesthetic choices is going to be very important, again, to differentiate it from Elder Scrolls and the 87,000th fucking Skyrim re-release. And it's very eye-catching in a good way. From PCGamer.com, development of realistic first-person tactical shooter 6 Days in Fallujah began all the way back in 2005, less than a year after the actual Iraq war battle it's based on. On June 22nd, so a few days ago from when we're recording this, it will finally be released in early access on Steam. 6 Days in Fallujah was originally going to be published by Konami, but in 2009, the company abandoned the game following outcry over its subject matter. Call of Duty was also being criticized at the time for turning contemporary military adventurism into entertainment, got by with its over-the-top fictional thriller plots. For many, basing a video game directly on a recent battle in which thousands were killed or wounded went too far. 6 Days was seen by critics as tasteless at best and grotesque propaganda at worst. The initial early release version of 6 Days will include 4 co-op missions featuring up to 4 players on maps that are procedurally generated to recreate the uncertainty of combat. In the future, Highwire plans to add more cooperative missions, as well as story campaign missions recreating real stories from the Second Battle of Fallujah from the perspective of both coalition forces and Iraqi civilians. In the making of 6 Days, which was conceived by a Marine who was wounded during the battle, the developer says that more than 100 Marines and soldiers were consulted, as well as 26 Iraqis, 24 of whom are from Fallujah. In an FAQ, the studio also said that 6 Days will address the controversial aspects of the Second Battle of Fallujah, although it doesn't specify which. Among those aspects are the U.S. military's use of white phosphorus and depleted uranium, the hundreds of civilian deaths, and the disputed legality of the Iraq War itself. Okay, so the fact fact that you somehow didn't remember what this is.
I don't know what this is.
This has been like an obsession of mine forever, because this was announced when I was a baby, and it's been every couple of years some new news or some new footage comes out, and it's always, you know, shrouded in discourse. Some people that I like...
What do you know of discourse?
You know I'm a professional discourser, sir. Okay, the actual gameplay looks bad, frankly. It looks like it's 20 years old. The thing for me that is, I think, more of a curiosity, like I've been talking about Call of Duty games recently, particularly the ones that are better. Even those on their best moments are still pretty iffy in terms of their politics. They're pretty hit or miss in terms of how, you know, coherently they're written and approach their rough subject matter. 6 Days is always been shrouded by like a butt ton of stuff, and it seems like over the time they've involved more people that would actually have more information and would be more interested in a more in-depth telling of events, which I think is definitely a good thing. But what the fuck have they been doing for 20 years? Because this game legit looks like it could have come out in like maybe 2010 at the latest. Like, the graphics are pretty bad, the gameplay looks fucking trash, and procedurally generated maps is a huge red flag. Like, I don't know if these developers have never made a fucking game before, but like the only thing it seems like they've been iterating on is like, how are we gonna go about discourse? And it's like, it shouldn't take you 20 years to sort that out. Either fucking do it or don't. Like, I just don't know what they've been doing. The last update I think we heard about this was a couple of years ago when there was I think it was an announcement. Like, it was like it might have had something to do with like the composer or whatever. Like, it wasn't anything huge. It was just, it reappeared in the news cycle for a hot minute. I believe, don't quote me, I think Marty O'Donnell is involved in this game, my Lord and Savior. So I'm interested. I'm gonna check it out. I don't think I'm gonna buy it unless it somehow gets reviewed a lot better than I'm expecting. It just looks really fucking wacky. Like, what have they been doing? What this game looks nothing like something that should be coming out these days.
Interviewing a lot of people.
How does that take you 20 years though?
I don't know.
I just don't get it. More than anything, it's not even frustrating. Like, if the game is tactless and American propaganda, wow, like every other first-person shooting modern military game. Okay, cool, whatever. Like, that's not gonna shock me. It will be disappointing, but that's it. I'll get over it. But it's so odd. It's such a weird relic of like the early 2000s.
I wonder what the OST sounds like. Does it have like pop 2005 songs?
No clue. No clue. This thing is so weird.
From GameInformer.com. Over the past few years, Capcom has steadily been sending their beloved Ace Attorney series to modern consoles. Today, it announced it is completing the collection with Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy out in early 2024. The collection includes Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, originally released on the DS, as well as the Series 2 3DS games Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice. While the games can be played in isolation, they're collectively understood to be entries 4, 5, and 6 in the Ace Attorney series, following the events of the original Phoenix Wright trilogy on the DS. The collection will include remastered HD visuals of each of the games while preserving their original styles. The Ace Attorney series follows defense lawyers Phoenix Wright and Apollo Justice as they're tasked to defend people accused of murder. The Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy was brought to modern consoles in 2019, and the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, a prequel series set during the Industrial Revolution, came to modern consoles in 2021. I think I missed that the first set came out in 2019, and then the second set came in 2021. Today's newest collection means all the series' mainline games will be available to play on modern consoles. Wow. Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy will be available early next year on PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC.
So I've never played these,
Me
but
either.
because they're of their place in like internet meme discourse, because of course that's where I live, it's cool. Now I might actually play them. I'm like that, you know? I mean, we talked about Metal Gear last month, and it's like, yep, I know how important they are, I know how relevant they are, blah, 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 but I didn't get to play them when they came out because I had other shit to do. I was a child, whatever. I was literally playing Pokemon. So it's nice that they're all out on modern consoles. Hopefully it's not crap, and I might actually play it.
Well,
it does make sense, though, that they're just putting it on, like, last gen, because
they're not be able to run. Yeah, they were running on a DS.
Right, I think it's gonna run pretty buttery smooth. From Kotaku.com, as spotted by Reset Era, on Wednesday, June 21st, 2023, the LA City Tourism Board of Commissioners held its regularly scheduled meeting and announced updates on tourism-related businesses and the like. Not usually the kind of thing that gets reported on Kotaku, sure. But in the meeting packet sent out a few days before, on June 16th, a small footnote on page 21 mentions some big news. E3 2024 and 2025 are seemingly cancelled. Kotaku has reached out to E3 organizer Reed Pop for comment and confirmation. If the next 2 years of E3 are officially cancelled, it is highly unlikely that the once popular video game trade show will ever return. Earlier this year, after cancelling E3 2023, ESA President and CEO Stanley Perry-Louis, when pushed to confirm if E3 2024 was still happening, wouldn't say and only answered the ESA would have more news to share. Looks like that's true, but it's not good news for folks looking forward to a return of the Electronic Entertainment Expo.
It's been dying for years.
Yeah, it's been dying since like 2012.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we called this.
It's call in the world.
Yeah, this is the final nail in the coffin before they make an official announcement, which, you know, is sad because it's a cool era of gaming. You know, the expo was always fun to watch from a distance. Not like we would ever get invited, but you know,
the giant companies that go to it, Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo,
they all
have been
do
doing their own thing now, and they seem to like doing their own thing now. So.
Yes, sir. Especially because that means they can do them more often, and every other one is horrible.
Yeah.
Particularly PlayStation. It's like the first.
I think it gives them more freedom too. Like, E3 expected them to do so much, and they couldn't.
And you need like the physical displays, and no, for sure, it definitely allows them more stuff. Which it is.
So it's partly E3's fault.
Yeah. It's just, you know, bygone era and whatnot.
Wow.
Sadness.
You know what bygone era I miss? Dan's Warped Tour. That shit needs to come back. I was so mad when it was canceled because I was gonna go, and then they canceled it.
He's so sad.
No, I'm angry.
I'm angry.
From Kotaku.com, during the big Xbox versus Federal Trade Commission court hearing, Pete Hines of Bethesda confirmed that the upcoming Indiana Jones game from Machine Games was originally planned to be a multi-platform release, meaning available to more people. But after Xbox bought up Bethesda, things changed, and the game will be an Xbox console exclusive. We don't really know much about this upcoming Indiana Jones game. It was first announced in 2021 and is being developed by Machine Games, the same studio behind the fantastic World War II shooters Wolfenstein: The New Order and its sequel, The New Colossus.
I mean, that makes sense.
Wow.
I didn't know that that's who was developing the game, though. I knew there was an Indiana Jones game from Bethesda coming down the pipeline, but I didn't know that it was Machine Games. So it's just an Indiana Jones reskin of Wolfenstein, so it's just killing Nazis. I'm very excited.
Probably not.
No, I know, but like if it was, I would.
Because there's a whip and a hat.
It's a reskin. If they did that, I would give them massive props for the cojones. But you know, it'll probably be fine. It does make sense that they're gonna, you know, exclusify, particularly because Xbox is not doing super hot on that front. They're definitely they're consolidating right now, and they're definitely getting some stuff down the pipeline, but they're still struggling for exclusivity right now.
Who made the last Wolfenstein game? The 2-player one?
I don't remember. It was some random. That was like the Metal Gear Survive of that series.
True.
Like it was an entirely random developer that
it was Machine Games and Arcane Studios.
Really? That's weird. Yeah, that tanked.
It was terrible.
Yeah, weird. From Kotaku.com, Halo Infinite Season 4 launched, bringing a long list of changes to the online first-person shooter, as well as the return of the fan-favorite Infection mode and some new maps. But on June 19th, right before the launch of the season, 343 community director Brian Gerard announced on Twitter that the game's latest season wouldn't feature new cutscenes. PSA, this is the tweet. PSA, as we've refined our top priorities and shifted resources internally this year, we've had to make the decision to forego seasonal narrative cutscenes to make room for the team to continue focusing on highly requested features, content, and improvements for Halo Infinite. Okay.
Oh no, I don't get my unskippable cutscene this season. I'm so upset.
Okay, you did kind of just sum up my thing. It makes sense, though, because 343 is not doing good financially right now, like at all. The company, Microsoft had a bunch of layoffs, Xbox had a bunch of layoffs, then 343 had a bunch of layoffs. Infinite's already had at least as poor of a launch as Halo 5 in that area, in terms of popularity and financial income. Then the 5th fucking lead dev on the game left right after launch. It makes sense. The narrative cutscenes that they've had for the first 3 seasons started off extremely anticlimactic. They were very silly. But the last season 3s I actually thought were really good. Like, quality-wise, they were phenomenally good looking. And I was kind of interested in where the story was going. It was very small little nuggets. It should have been much more. But it's just great that Halo has yet another unfinished story when Halo Infinite is already an unfinished story. The campaign DLCs were canceled. Now the multiplayer DLC story is getting canceled. Season 4 is really good so far, content-wise. I will say I've sunk in about 10 hours. This is what the game should have launched with, hands down. It actually is a somewhere near complete game now, but it is just really disappointing because those, you can look them up, you can YouTube and show, like, some of those cutscenes were actually like really inventive and they're pretty fucking cool, especially for Halo. They were very not Halo-esque, and that was cool. It seemed like it was like a whole other team working on them, which was nice, but they're just not doing good financially right now, so it makes sense that we need to focus on whatever content we can put out until we can figure out what the fuck we're doing with the next game, if we're doing another game, and, you know, all that fun shit.
You should read the next one, because I have a bit of news.
That's incredibly suspicious. Whatever.
You are sus.
I am always sus. From Kotaku.com, in a new interview, Xbox Game Studio chief Matt Booty confirmed that the company is done developing first-party games for older Xbox One consoles, explaining that Microsoft has moved on from the prior generation machine and is now focused on the Xbox Series consoles. It's yet another sign that the old consoles are being left behind for after a longer than usual transitional period. Released nearly a decade ago, in November 2013, the Xbox One had a bit of a rocky launch with jokes about its size, lack of games, high price, always online requirements, Kinect motion controls, and a misplaced focused on watching TV, dominating most conversations about the then new console. In the longer term, thanks to Xbox's Game Pass subscription service and the launch of the more powerful Xbox One X, the console stuck around and found fans, but it was never really much of a competitor with Sony's PlayStation 4, with Sony's console selling twice as well as the Xbox One. Now, nearly 10 years after its debut, Microsoft is letting the console retire and moving on to focus entirely on its current-gen machines. But it is kind of a little bit of a sad moment. Like, if the Xbox One was a person, I would feel very bad for him, because he got the shit end of the stick for a very long time. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get games released on the console, but it does mean that Xbox Game Studios themselves are not putting any of their exclusives just on the Xbox,
right?
Which makes sense. It felt relevant enough, especially now that I think we've kind of reached the equilibrium for current-gen consoles being available in stores. I think most of the manufacturing problems have been resolved. There's still definitely a lower stock than one would expect for previous generations, but I think that's just where we are with electronics now. Like, in the post-COVID, like, manufacturing world, I don't think we would have ever recovered more, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think we're going to see hundreds of them in the same Walmart, like, ever again.
The article hit my point, and it's like, it's taken a long time to transition from last gen to current gen, so... Yeah,
especially because it's not even really a huge jump.
Yeah. Weird.
Definitely weird. What fucking news do you have, weirdo? Sussy boy.
There was a pretty big Nintendo Direct that happened.
Like yesterday.
It was a couple days ago.
Goo Goo Gaga.
4 days ago.
Mario.
New Mario, where he can become an elephant. That is the end of it. No, I'm kidding. Pikmin 4, the Arkham's trilogy.
Coming to Switch, yeah.
Coming to Switch. DLC for the Mario and Rabbids game. Wow. That was it.
But the Mario becomes an elephant.
Mario has a penis for a nose.
When I first saw an image of that, I thought it was like photoshopped. I was just scrolling, I think, through Reddit on like the news tab, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" Like, it makes sense because the last main Mario platformer game was Odyssey, and well, yes, but Odyssey was what, 2018 or 2019? It's been a few years. It's still making bank, it would seem. People are still talking about it all the fucking time. But like, it makes sense that it's time for a new Mario game. Elephant, I see the vision.
The Wii U one with the expansion that was never released before.
Yeah.
Where Mario's a furry.
Mario's always been a furry, I think.
Angry Birds!
Fuck you for that. I don't like
Came out in what, 2019?
2016.
What?
Yep, 2016. The sequel is 2019.
Oh, that was close.
Yeah. It's an animated movie. It's very bad, and there's only one thing two positive things I have to say about this. One, I think they wanted, I do think sometimes, I think they wanted the main cast of birds to express different types of anger. I think that's what they were trying to go for with the group dynamic, was like because there's different types of anger and frustration. They express their anger differently. You have like the guy that just kind of goes off. You have the guy that's like constantly pissy with everybody. You have the one who's like very happy-go-lucky, but like he'll slash your tires when you're not looking. Like, that's kind of the vibe I was getting.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they did anything good with it. I think there was some type of effort there, and I love Terrence because of course I do.
Which one is that?
The big one that's implied to have committed like war crimes or something. the one where the memes come from, where it's like
giant red one. Yeah.
I love that one. That's it.
Okay.
Almost everything else about this movie is really fucking painfully unfunny and extremely inappropriate.
Yeah. I couldn't see like the timer on Netflix on my phone, but I swear it was like 30 seconds into the movie they made a fart joke, and I was like, give it like the title card. Holy crap.
Yeah, no, seriously. Like, this joke is mostly just sex jokes, and not even like tame sex jokes. It's like there's piss fetish jokes everywhere. It's like, what the fuck happened? Like, I am no stranger to raunchy movies. I like Sausage Party, sue me. I don't care. But like, what the fuck is this movie? It feels like a fever dream.
Yeah.
It's so...
Yeah. I'm trying to remember details about it. I'm like, did I even watch that? Or did I dream it?
Like, the animation is shiny and whatever, who cares? But, like, everything is like, wow, piss. Wow, balls. Wow, giblets, which are balls. Wow, they make babies. Wow, they should have more babies. It's, like, non-stop. And I know, like, the cast is a bunch of fucking adult comedians, but... This is supposed to be for children? Because clearly no effort was put into the plot or the animation to be, like, actually artistic. So it's meant to be for fucking iPad babies. But then all the jokes are for, dads who play Angry Birds when their kids are, like, asleep.
It's made for, like, our generation, but people our age that have kids.
It's so weird. This was painful. I would have sworn I didn't hate it very much the first time I watched it, but like oh my gosh,
you watched it more than once?
I've seen this more than once.
Whoa.
I watched this a couple of years ago.
This was my first time viewing it, and I didn't mind it. It was okay. It felt like any other Illumination movie.
Yeah,
kinda.
That's It's bad. That's bad. That's bad.
Yeah.
Fat L. It's so fucking cringy, man.
There was a lot of
the bird pissed. He pissed in the water, and they drank the water like nonstop. Just
I didn't
gross
catch,
humor.
Like a lot of sex joke. I only remember one of them that was like, wow. that was up front.
Ladies, make more babies.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
The yellow one humping the air.
Oh my gosh.
But there were a lot of like shit and fart jokes, and I don't know.
This felt really gross to watch. Like, by the time it was over, I watched this sober, sadly, and
Me too.
why would we do that to ourselves? It's just so gross.
Maybe
feeling.
we should stop watching these shitty video game movies
No.
sober.
Yes. I agree. I definitely agree.
Had you in the first half.
You did. I have no further thoughts on this movie. My Letterboxd review was stupid short. This is not one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but man, is it damn far down there. The animation is bright and shiny for little kids, but the humor is strangely and grossly adult at every turn.
You're doing
I
it
like
again.
Terrence. I like Terrence. That's it. It's just he's either implied to be like a child rapist or like a terrorist. I don't know what they're going for.
But also he's friendly.
I don't get it.
I think it was just like
It's incoherent.
I think it was like just a farce. I think he's actually a teddy bear.
I mean, probably. I don't know, man.
Speaking of teddy bear, there was the free hugs guy that was definitely a child rapist.
That was okay.
That was not okay.
The hug, that one was a little funny, admittedly, but also they're just like, you would steal babies, and it's like, what the fuck,
right?
That, oh my gosh, I don't understand. I really don't understand how this even got made. I don't know how this made money, and I don't know how it got a sequel. I have also seen the sequel, and it is slightly less disturbing.
Wow.
Well, it's still really bad, but it is slightly less. What the fuck was that?
All right, it's on my list of movies. It's a half a star below Black Adam, and it's just above Kimmy, and that's above Quantumania, and that's above Tekken. And that's the end of my list. Like, that's the bottom. Angry Birds, Kimmy, Quantumania, Tekken. Speaking of lists, you played Callisto Protocol.
I did play Callisto Protocol.
Not once, but twice.
I have.
And then bought the season pass.
Okay, yes, that is correct. Nothing you have said is false, but I think it's misleading. I don't really like this game. Okay, so we were originally planning on playing Callisto Protocol together separately, in our separate homes, to have a shared experience, because we were both looking forward to it when it was announced and watching all of the gameplay come out and whatever. We both really like Dead Space. It was exciting to see something like Dead Space.
Made by the Dead Space guy.
The Dead Space guy. And then it got not a great reception. And then we pushed it off a little bit, and then we waited, and then, being the intelligent gentleman that we are, purchased it on a sale for like $20 off. Great sale.
I think it was like $30 we got.
Something like that. And then every week following that, I saw it on sale for cheaper, and now it has officially hit the $20 rack at Walmart, despite the fact that it came out less than 6 months ago.
Yep.
So, yeah. Okay, so it's developed by Striking Distance Studios originally. This was originally designed to be a side game to PUBG.
What?
Yeah. It's nutty.
How?
I know. And I think that one decision kind of explains a lot of the stuff about the game. Sort of. It was originally designed to be like a side game in the PUBG universe, and then only maybe about 9 months ago, they officially announced it was no longer in that continuity and it had nothing to do with it. And I think that left the story team scrambling.
That hurts my head.
Yeah. PUBG is very complicated and bad, and mostly just bad and old. But, so, long story short, in 2320, Jacob Lee and Max Barrow are contract freight transporters working for the United Jupiter Company, UJC. The two decide to retire upon ferrying one last shipment between Europa and the UJC operating Black Iron Prison on Callisto, which is one of Jupiter's many, many moons. Shortly after leaving Black Iron in their ship, the Charon, they are boarded by the Outer Way, a terrorist organization, in big quotations. They crash land. They are shoved in the prison facility.
Didn't seem like that big of quotations. I've seen bigger.
You've seen bigger, have you?
I've seen bigger quotations.
Yeah. So, Max dies during the impact, and then Jacob and the leader of the Outer Way are thrown into the prison with no, trial, nothing. And they're all, why the fuck are we here? I was just working on a ship. What the fuck's going on? And then he wakes up, and the prison's fucking falling to shit. The place is on fire. Everything's breaking down. Prisoners are running amok. They're getting infected with some weird goopy virus bug thing. And then Jacob teams up with another inmate.
That guy.
Elias. The fact that I didn't remember his name should tell you a lot about his character. He is British. That is his defining character trait. He is British and says funny British words. Yeah. Mate. He teams up with another inmate. They try to escape. Partly through their escape, as shenanigans ensue, they bump into Danny, the leader of the Outer Way. They have to team up with her to escape. Elias dies. They uncover the mystery of what the fuck is going on. And then the game ends very abruptly. So Jacob, you are
exactly halfway through. I've done 4 out of 8 levels.
Okay.
And it's surprising how long the levels are. It takes like more than an hour to play a level.
Okay, so a lot of the... Okay.
Don't worry about spoilers. Just give it to me straight.
Okay, so narrative speaking, this game is nearly identical to Dead Space.
Yeah.
The parallels were intentional, and a lot of them are unavoidable for the sake of comparison, which is simultaneously the game's biggest and least biggest problem. On the one hand, it has shorthand that Dead Space players are used to. There's a vibe that we're prepared for. We're hungry, so we're willing to overlook some things. You already have a plot outline, and you can basically just switch all the names around and call it a day. That's mostly what they did, and that is where it's kind of fucking suck story-wise. Spoilers. I'm not gonna get into the nitty-gritty, but just they're aliens. Who could have thought about it? They're aliens.
Holy cow.
The long and short of it, you discover this throughout the plot. Originally, it's a mining colony underneath where the prison is now. So you end up going underground, you find out there's a mining colony, they mined into the moon, they found this big old alien fucking weird thing that had a bunch of little spermies. The little spermies started infecting people, everyone got sick, and then they basically just bombed the shit out of it.
I saw an X-Files episode like this one time. Yeah,
basically. They bombed the shit out of it, and then they planted a prison over top of it so they could use the infection of the weird spermies to... They could experiment on prisoners, basically. A lot of the plot doesn't entirely make sense on a timeline level. It's very hazy on how everything works. There's a secret organization that is at play behind the scenes of the prison. The prison exists to fund and provide bodies for research, basically, which you could have been told from the beginning of the fucking first trailer. Is like, wow, this prison seems very sussy. Duh. The seeds are not even planted. When I say the fact that the twist is that there's a big secret organization that the head of the prison works for is offhandedly mentioned twice, because there's two secret layers you can find underground that don't directly imply anything other than some of the prisoners or the employees knew about stuff. There's parts of this story I want to like, and there's some of it I do like, no strings attached to it. But for the most part, it is sloppy. It's very fucking sloppy. Almost everything is just a copy paste of Dead Space. They change the names and they change how a couple of things work. All of the characters are very flat. The biggest thing, which we're going to get into in a couple of months when we actually go over Dead Space and the remake, and I'm going to go over Dead Space 2 and 3 eventually. Isaac in the first game is a silent protagonist for a reason that's explained at the end of the game. But for the entirety of the game, he is just you, the player. And Jacob Lee is not like Isaac. He is exactly what you'd expect, a gruff, ready to tumble, working blue collar man. And that's his whole personality.
He says the fuck word.
He does say the fuck word. They all say the fuck word a lot. There is a big twist about his character that's revealed almost the entire way through the story, which recontextualizes everything and is actually a way more interesting story, but there is zero effort put into making it believable. Long story short...
The British guy is actually Jacob's dad.
No. Oh. Basically... the last shipment of, it's at the beginning of the game story, it's like, wow, look at this weird attack happening on this random colony that we see on the news. Oh, it's the terrorist org. They're doing weird shit and it's being covered up and blah, blah, blah. They delivered the virus is the big twist. And the game has the tiniest of hints of like, he knows, but he doesn't know. Like, it's like a half repressed, like, just do the job, don't ask questions type shit. And I think if they had planned that either from the beginning or had actually put effort into the story being about guilt and wanting to make up for doing a dumb thing and being a cog in the machine without giving two shits about it, that's really fucking interesting. And there's no interest in actually telling that story outside of the beginning, the big twist, and then basically the lead-in for the DLC.
I like it when your eyes pop out like that. It's funny.
Dude, I was sitting there and I saw the twist coming and I was like, oh, that could have actually been really fucking cool. But the only reason you as the player would guess that information is because it's a trope and you've played games before, not because it's planted or an idea you have. The only effective scares in the game that are not just jump scare, like the only effective scares are about him feeling guilty for Max dying in the crash. There's a couple of, as Jacob really liked to tell me right off the bat, there's a bunch of little Jacob whispers in the game that are actually really good. They never do it again after the first...
Which is good because I really hated those. Especially because it was coming out of my PlayStation controller.
That's so funny.
Not okay.
Absolutely tripping balls. There's a couple of actually halfway decent things used. He sees apparitions of Max, who, when he dies, his face gets all fucked up and his teeth are near his eyes. Looks really cool. There's a couple of really shitty jump scares. He crawls out from underneath the bed.
A lot of shitty jump scares.
Yes, but there are a couple of ones, especially at the end of the game, where he starts seeing Max and then they have a conversation and, he's like, blah, 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 you need to take responsibility for what we did. There's a couple of things that are pretty solid on the writing department. But, dude, nothing is explored until about 60-70% of the way through the game. The beginning throws you into the thick of it and you're going, what the fuck? And then you just get plot developments and new gameplay mechanics. You don't get any real information on what the hell's going on, who the people are, what they mean, despite
is this tea drinker talking to me all the time?
Despite the fact...
What is he even saying? I don't understand his words.
True. Despite the fact that the cast of the game is really small, there's less than 10 characters, in total, that are named, outside of audio log characters, but somehow they don't explore any of it. They don't explore the world building implications, which is the thing about Dead Space that I really appreciate. Outside of it being a phenomenal game with really good scares in it, the world building was done so organically with the audio logs, with the plot information, with how the plot tied into the secrets, how you could infer a lot of stuff. Not because they were tropes, but because the game actually planted seeds for them. And after replaying it, it's all really fucking obvious now. But especially at the time, it was really, really good at doing that. And this game does none of that on the effort side when it comes to engaging with its ideas.
Back on the shitty jump scares, there was one last night where it got me the first time. You just walk through a door and suddenly there was a guy in the corner that grabs you. But after he killed me and I had to do it again, I entered the door sideways and he wasn't there until like a really, really bad animation dropped him in and grabbed me anyway. And I was like, ugh, this game.
So, yeah. My biggest... Despite the... I'm going to get into the gameplay in a minute. My biggest mental disappointment is the lack of effort put into the story, because the motion capture performances and the vocal work from the leads are pretty good. The facial captures are really good. I have a big thing for what's her name, Karen Fukuhara, I believe is her name, the woman who plays Danny, the lead of the head of the Outer Way terrorist organization, in big quotations. It's just none of them are explored. While I was playing the game, I was thinking of ways that they could have tweaked the characters and condensed them to make it make more sense. Sam Witwer plays the evil head guard who only appears at the beginning and the end of the game, but is basically lined up to like be your rival, I guess. It's very stupid. It makes my head hurt, because a lot of that stuff is not... I wouldn't say it's not hard. Like, I can't make a game, but it's been done so many times, and the fact that they copied over so much material from Dead Space and then just changed the names on it, the fact that they couldn't do that, I think really, really fucking blows from like a development standpoint. Gameplay wise, it's fine. Okay, so here's the deal. So it's a combination of melee combat, which is rhythm-based fucking dodging and blocking combat. It's super weird. Basically, you hold the left stick to the left or to the right to dodge an enemy's attack, or you hold it backwards to block, which took me about 5 hours to figure out. And you have to, dodge enemy attacks, wait for an opening, and then you use the right trigger, or L3 or whatever. That's L2 on PlayStation. R2 on PlayStation retards. You use the trigger R2. To, use your melee weapon to go whack, whack, whack.
No.
Whack. Yeah. Okay.
It takes 30 seconds to do it.
Okay, you're right. And then as the game progresses, you get a couple more expressions of that. The bumper above that trigger is used for a heavy attack, which does about the same amount of damage, but it does more knockback, so they get knocked over, or they get, fall on their ass. It's also good for crowd control. If you have a few enemies, you can hit them all at the same time, usually. That's about it on the physical combat. And for a game that is 50-50 melee combat and shooting, it's... I'm pretty confident it was The Completionist, a YouTube channel I really like. He described it as Dead Space. I'm gonna keep saying that. Dead Space plus Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, like a fighting game, because it's really weird. There is no timing to the attacks. It's as long as you're holding the stick in the right direction, you'll dodge the thing, which at first really pissed me off because it seems extremely lazy, but as the game goes on, trust me, you're gonna thank it for that. It makes it a lot easier to get used to. The biggest problem with the melee combat isn't that it's shallow, for me anyways, after playing the game through twice. The problem isn't that the melee is really shallow and clunky, it's the fact that the game is not made for more than one enemy on screen. Because if you are fighting more than one, maybe two enemies at a time, the combat falls apart. When it's just one normal enemy, one of the base enemy types, you get pretty used to it. A couple of them have really recognizable attack patterns based on how they look, the enemy presentation, and that's fine. It's boring, but it's fine. It functions. But once you get a couple of them on screen, particularly if you fail a stealth section, you are fucked. And it happens a lot in this game because its difficulty is really broken.
I had a hallway yesterday when I was playing where guys came out of vents in the walls.
Yeah, it's the one with the white background, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
And then there were dudes coming from the white background. So I would hold back and get the one dude, and every single time, I got stuck here really bad. Every single time, the enemy I was facing would grab me and launch me further into the hallway so that more dudes come into the hallway.
Yep.
So then you have at least 2 dudes to fight, if not 3. So it's so intentional on the game developers somewhere somehow to have more than one-on-one fights.
Yes.
And it's so annoying because that's the game's weakest point, I think.
Absolutely.
The combat is so bad, it's not made for that, but they kept intentionally making you do it.
Yep. Yeah, so the enemies, if they're not attacking, are usually doing an idle stutter animation, or they are grabbing you and trying to shove their tentacles down your eyeballs, or they'll grab you and then spin around and throw you, in a direction. The melee combat is just really grinding. After a certain amount of time, especially when you hit a couple of mini-bosses, or I wouldn't even call them mini-bosses, just more aggressive enemies, you get really used to it to the point where, even though it takes longer, I'll just be it's heavy attack, they fall down, I stomp on them, they get back up, heavy attack, they fall down, I stomp on, and it's it takes so long. They are so simultaneously melee spongy and bullet spongy for the most part, that the enemies take forever to finish combat sections. On my my second playthrough on a higher difficulty, despite the fact that I had just played the game, so I basically knew where all the enemy spawns were and whatnot, I was trying to speed through it as fast as I could and avoid whatever enemies I was able to avoid, other than for the sake of getting loot. And it's really hard to chew through quickly. You have to take the gameplay not slowly, but pretty methodically.
I've had that on freaking normal difficulty.
And that's the one of the annoying parts of it. The other annoying part of the melee and general gameplay is the amount of QuickTime events. There are, like I said, there's sometimes when you're in combat, an enemy will take their face tentacles and they'll shove them in your eye and your mouth, and then you have to spam the Y button, or what would that be? Triangle on PlayStation, with no rhythm to it or amount of hits. You just have to spam it and then you shove them off you. Sometimes you will also hit the foreskin monster, which is an enemy type that plants itself in the ground. It looks like a big dick. I don't care. Correction, it looks like the big dick from The Boys. It has a skull on top of a foreskin, and then it shoots at you. It bites into your shoulder, and you have to stab it with your knife. And it's the same problem where there's no rhythm to how the QuickTime event works, and you always take damage. Yep. You can't avoid them, and it will pull you into a room away from where you want it to go. And then it might potentially drag you into other enemies. And the biggest thing that I discovered on my New Game Plus playthrough, after almost 20 hours already, you can turn off the QuickTime events. In the menu, if you go into the accessibility options, something I do want to give this game credit for, it does have a lot of really good accessibility options. You can turn off QuickTime events, you can make the dodging even easier if that's a problem, changing the repetitive motion stuff for a controller. Really good options to have. And you can just turn it off. It'll still do the animations, which is fucking obnoxious as shit, but it won't then make you get angry by spamming buttons. You just then have to wait 5 seconds for the animation to be over. It'll automatically get the enemy off of you. Really frustrating shit on that front, because that is turn of the 2010s technology there. The QuickTime events have no rhythm. There's no set button count to it. It's just you do it and then it's over. And you're lucky if you can get out of an enemy's grip without taking damage. There's no way to prevent it. Most of the time, there's no rhyme or reason. And that's bullshit. And that's most of the gameplay mechanics funnel back to bullshit. Not piss poor or broken, but kind of intentionally bullshitty. Movement is my other biggest gripe with this game. You are slow as dirt. Even when you are holding the left bumper to sprint, you are a moderate jog. I'm fat and I can run faster than this guy. You'll be in the middle of a combat arena and he just slightly picks up his feet to scamper through it. It's fucking horrible. There are shimmy tunnels all over this game, which are clearly there to hide loading screens, which used to be a cute little, I don't know, when open world games did that, you're oh, I know they're hiding a loading screen, but I think it's cool. Fucking Fallen Order does that, but there's only a couple of them. It's when you go into a big building and they're 2 seconds long. Versus this game, they're everywhere.
Very long.
Everywhere. All the stealth sections, trust me, you haven't seen the half of it, bucko. The second half of the game has even more of them. You are crawling through areas, you have to climb through vents, which take the same amount of time, they have the same animation every time. There's no way to back out of it, there's no way to make it go faster or to skip it. You just have to fucking chew through it.
Vents had a pattern, and I've been waiting to talk about it, because you complained about it. You could always tell when there was going to be a jump scare, because at the end of the length that you're crawling through, it would look different. It would be like a clear vent at the end instead of like a solid wall. So it's like, oh, that's going to be a jump scare. And
boogie. Yeah, every fucking time.
Yeah.
I want to say something just because this has bothered me with any game that has a vent crawling system, particularly the Batman Arkham games. I have never played a game in my 15 years of playing video games where they actually put a fucking jump scare in the vents. Vents are only there to build suspicion and suspense, but there's no real gameplay jump scare. Like you said, there's a little in the distance, you'll see some feet scamper around, which this game does a lot of, like, wow, look, there's something in the distance. No point. Just by the fact that you are crawling through shit-infested, like, biofungus tunnels in this game. There are no enemies in the tunnels, there are no jump scares, and it seems to only be a technological problem. Because, like I said, Batman Arkham games have had, like, vent problems forever. They're annoying, but, you know, even those are, like, fluid, at least. There's never any enemies in those. And despite the fact that every single time I crawl through, I'm like, oh, I bet it's around this corner, there's never anything. And that was the thing with this game that made me just have none of the scares affected me in the second half, because once I got through the first few, like, long tunnel sequences, I was like, why do I even have headphones on? Like, this is, I'm not going to be able to tell. And that's the thing, is because Dead Space is phenomenal at doing sound and light-based jump scares. They will actually make them avoidable, detectable scares. If you've played the game, or if you're towards the end of it, you'll know, based on where the smoke is or where previous enemies are, they'll actually crawl around the fucking vents in the Ishimura to go behind you and do all sorts of stuff. It's real in gameplay mechanics that the enemies are doing, even though they're clunky and especially now have aged a little bit. This game, the Callisto Protocol, they just spawn. There is no pattern. There is no giveaway. You'll hear scamper. 4 seconds later, wow, it's the hole in the wall that every time there's that hole in the wall, an enemy pops through it. Holy shit, an enemy popped through. No fucking shit. And it's the most infuriating thing, because again, it's trying to pass itself off as a spiritual successor to Dead Space, whereas the Dead Space first game, 15 years ago, could nail this in terms of not bullshitting you with scares. They would be jump scares, and they would be, the monster pops out of the vent and goes, oh, wooga wooga, which bothers the fuck out of me. But like, those, you know it's coming because you've gotten used to the patterns of the game. This has got nothing to it, and it drove me up a wall. Stealth sections. The second half of the game has a lot more stealth than the first half. There's a couple of spots in the first half of the game where it'll tell you should crouch, because usually there's like an enemy robot that you can't kill that will just walk around trying to find prisoners. Those are annoying, and they are basically instant kill machines. Even on the lower difficulties, you can't dodge it. Like, you have to be behind it or shoot it before it sees you. That's it. And on higher difficulties, you can't kill them. So fuck that shit. There are stealth sections later in the game when you get to the underground. And this is where my time with the game simultaneously got much better and much, much worse. The stealth is fucking busted to hell. Like, more than the melee combat. The stealth, there is no... So I don't play stealth games exclusively, but like, I like stealth games, even bad stealth games like most of the Assassin's Creed games. You have like either sound or sight lines is how most games function off of this. The enemies in the underground are different enemy types, which is cool. They look different, they're presented differently, even though they look basically just like clickers from The Last of Us. You will get a lot of a lot of Last of Us vibes towards the second half of the game. They look more fungusy, they're more bony and like tall and whatever. They're blind, and you can't, the game will tell you by, smarmy little graffiti written in blood, don't make sounds. And it's like, okay, cool. It just means crouch. That's it. They can't see you, and you can almost touch them and they won't do anything. The only way that it will, like, this drove me so crazy when I finally figured out. Another thing I realized way too late. You can't, when you do the kill animation, like a stealth kill, you come up behind the fucker. It's like, hit the A button to stab it, and you jump upwards. And you throw the fucker on the ground, and it's apparently silent.
Cool.
No! It's immersion breaking. It's the loudest stealth kill I've ever heard in my life. It is dramatic and grungy, and it's like you stab in the knee, and then the back of the head, and then you stab in the front of the head, and then you twist it around. It's violent as hell, which is cool, because it looks good. And none of the enemies hear it, because it's a stealth kill. And it also throws the camera all around the room, which drives me up a wall, because then you can't keep track of where the other enemies are for a couple of seconds, so they could just pop up behind you, because they kind of shamble around with no rhyme or reason. So on the one hand, I was paranoid at first when playing the game, because I was really trying to be like, maybe I'm not playing it right, maybe the game, it just not everything works great, but like, okay, oh, cool, big stealth section, I wonder how this works. And I was like, oh my god, I made so much noise, I'm gonna die. Nothing. I did it again. And you can stomp on the enemies to break their bodies, take their ammunition, and it doesn't make any sound, apparently. So there was freedom in that. There was a sense of, fuck it, we ball, which was cool, because then my stress levels went way down. But then almost all frighteningness that the game had completely wore off. It's creepy because there's a bunch of shambling corpse monsters bumping around, but also it's fucking silly because you can rip them limb from limb and none of them notice. The stealth is just so bad. And it takes up, it's like 2 to 3 chapters of the game are almost entirely stealth based. The combat in those sections is also busted because if you are detected somehow, if you're an idiot, then just all the enemies in the area come after you, and you can't fix it. You can't run away because they hear you. But like, there's no way to escape combat because they don't see you.
Also, there's no way to run.
That too. Your running is just low as dirt. Like there's no way to escape it. So you just have to die. Either you have to fight all of them or you have to die. Both are doable. Whatever. And it makes for a really grueling experience. There are boss battles later in the game. There is like a mini boss, which you'll encounter 2 or 3 times. And then there's the final boss of the game, who has 2 phases. They're crap. The mini boss is at least bearable. It is mostly a shooting gallery. And then you have to just do a bunch of dodging. And in the areas where you do said boss battle, you have to just run around trying to find any ammunition you can while avoiding the thing, because it'll just swing at you from behind you and you can barely see it and you die instantly. Horrible. It's cool because it's a 2-headed monster, which is pretty cool. There's gnarly bits where you fight it and then you knock it to its knees, you beat the shit out of it. It gets back up and it rips off like one of the bodies. It's just really cool to watch because it's like, yeah, get off me, ew. And then it goes feral and whatever. It feels like a Titan battle from Arkham Asylum, kind of, not in its gameplay mechanics, but like vibes. And then the final boss of the game is. It's just guns. You just shoot it, and you run away, and you shoot it some more, and then you shoot it some more, and then the game's over. The final boss nearly killed me on my first playthrough. I took a full day to beat it because it's so broken. You have to revert back to previous saves and chew through all credits you have to get ammunition, because otherwise you just can't. The final boss is absolutely dog shit. While the rest of the game has been training you for its crappy rhythm-based combat and its very crappy shooting mechanics, then the final boss is just shoot it until it dies. And it's so counterintuitive from the earlier parts of the game. The thing I've been kind of avoiding is simultaneously the best and worst part of the game because they avoid it so much. The grip is a very cool tool. It's basically like it's a glove. It's a little gauntlet thingy. It's the Force, basically. You can grab enemies, throw them, The primary use for the player is to throw enemies into a meat grinder, which is fun as shit. It's very...
I'm pretty sure I came up to a stealth section where there were like 6 enemies, and I just whooped them all into the meat grinder.
Wait,
and that's what
it's when so you go down a ladder, and then you turn right to the platform, and then they're in a smoke, and then there's like a central pillar, right? Yeah, that one fucked me up so bad the first few times, and then
I just whooped them all.
That was the part that was hard. I was like low on health and ammo, so you have to whoop them.
There was also a platform that killed me a couple of times because you have to ride it across like a bridge, and it was so slow, and there were like 3 or 4 enemies at the end of the bridge that just shot me until I was dead, and I just had to whoop them into the void underneath the bridge.
Yes, sir.
Like, instead of shooting at them.
The grip unit is a really cool idea that when you use it, I think works well. It's pretty straightforward. It doesn't take that long. Like, you just need to be vaguely aimed at the right person. You aim down sights, and then you press the A button. It pulls the enemy into the air. You hold them like you're force choking them, and then you can either pull them closer to melee hit them, or you can throw them. That's basically it, but those are arguably the best parts of the gameplay sections, are when the grip unit is active, because you can always tell, you walk into a big room, and there's a bunch of little spinny things around, and you go, oh, this is the part where I get to throw shit.
It's worse than that. It's like every single hallway has spikes on the walls for no reason.
Because, yes, there are a lot of... They get even more prevalent later on. There's a bunch of just wall sections with spikes, and it's like, it's telling you to just throw shit.
Yeah, but I got stuck again because there was like a room with 3 bad guys, and they wouldn't back off enough for me to fight them with melee. So it's like, fine, I'll just throw all 3 of you on top of each other onto the spikes on the wall.
And it's extremely easy to spam, despite the fact that there's a skill tree for all of your stuff, sort of, kind of. For the grip unit, it gets the like amount of time you can hold someone or something is extended. You can throw them further, and you can throw them faster. So if you throw them faster, you do more damage, or you can just obliterate them. I thought all of that was fine, but even right from the beginning, you can just take an enemy, you can be like right in front of them and just go flick, and they're just on the wall and dead. And it's like, the game has no balance between its really hard, broken melee mechanics and its fine shooting, and its really, really broken force powers. And it's just very frustrating, because the force powers are the really, really fun part of the game that I thought were really cool. There are not enough sections where it's a big arena, and it's like, wow, there's a propeller over there. I wonder what that's for. It's for throwing shit into. And that's really fun. And that's what they tried to sell the game on, was the meat grinder. There's not enough of it. When it does happen, it's really cool. There's a bunch of propellers or some engine components or whatever bullshit excuse there is for a big spinny thing with spikes on it. And that's fine. It's so easy to spam, and then the section's over, and then the fun's gone. And that it doesn't want you to have the fun, because it takes it away so quickly. And it's useless in boss battles, like, entirely. So, fuck that. Very frustrating.
You should be able to throw the meat grinder at the boss.
That would be fun. So yeah, the gameplay on the whole is slow, not methodical, not meticulous, and sloppy. The gunplay is actually okay. I enjoy it, partially because the aesthetic of it makes me happy. I like the 3D printed gun shit. I'm a nerd. I don't care. Eventually you get basically a handgun, and then there's a couple of weapon schematics you can pick up in side areas that are basically extensions for the one gun, which I like. That weird, it's a vibe thing, where like you can go into your sub menu and change out the handgun to be like a hand shotgun, and then you can change it out to be like a hand it's not the hand cannon, that's just the hand gun, but like you can change it out and it's like a big boom, I like that. It's okay. All of them are usable. You also can get further weapon upgrades to get an assault rifle, a riot gun, which is basically just like a hip-fired shotgun, and one other gun I don't remember. They're all usable. I mostly played my first playthrough with the riot gun and then I would switch the hand cannon to be the skunk gun, which is like the hand shotgun. On my second playthrough, I was trying to actually upgrade all my shit, so I was trying to switch back and forth with the it's like the tactical pistol or whatever. It's the gun go boom and the assault rifle. They're fine. None of them are terribly more useful than the others. They all have alt fire modes, so after a certain amount of upgrades, you can, when you aim down sights, you can hit like a bumper and it'll be a big explosive round or something like that. And those are all fine. They help break up the monotony of the shooting. The biggest problem with the shooting is the fact that there is no rhyme or reason on how you kill enemies. Dead Space is really notorious for its you need to shoot the limbs, because the limbs are the dangerous parts and the limbs are the things that will like actually go at you. The enemies can exist with just their limbs, which is fucking gross and disturbing. But this game, just, you have to do enough collective damage to the enemy. And while that would have been fine in basically any other game, a game in direct conversation with Dead Space, it's unacceptably simple. If you shoot the head off of them, some enemies will stop spitting vomit at you, and that's about it. Like, the enemies all can just sense where you are without their head, without their eyes. They can hear you all the time. You can shoot limbs off, and they will have different attack patterns. And that's basically it. About halfway through the game as well, the enemies have an evolved form where they get little tentacle squid monsters, and then if you don't kill the enemy fast enough, it'll transform and become big and bony and harder to kill. That, aesthetically speaking, reminded me exclusively of one thing, and it is the Flood in Halo 4's multiplayer infection mode. I don't know why, but it's the same weird orangey flesh look. I don't know where that came from, but it was the only thing I could think of, and I hated that part of the game, because then almost every single enemy then has a timer on it that you just need to very aggressively kill it, and most of the time you still can't do it. The guns are all cool looking. You go to the upgrade tree, basically, is a 3D printer module in this prison complex, which doesn't entirely make sense why it would exist, but whatever. You can upgrade your baton, so your cop baton, with more damage or electric powers or a bigger swing or a longer reach, whatever. They're all fine. The guns you can upgrade with bigger magazines, better handling, alt fire modes, like I said, and you can buy ammunition for it. It's really simple, and I'm fine with it. It does have a similar inventory management system as with Dead Space or Resident Evil are another direct comparison. The problem with that being none of your shit stacks. So you have maybe 6 inventory slots for pickups. You pick up ammunition, and ammunition only stacks up to a certain amount, very low for like each
5,
gun.
I think.
It depends on each gun. Some of them are 4, some are 5, some are 10, and that's it. So the ammo takes up really precious area in your inventory. It's not worth very much, but you always need it, even on the easier difficulties. You should just be shooting shit more than you should try fighting shit. But the problem with that is you need other random parts. There's like energy converters or random scrap shit that you can sell. As the game goes on, it gets higher in value. You can pick out part like CPUs off the robots, and then you can sell them back to the prison so you can get more credits. The gameplay loop of like scavenging for parts and then selling them, I thought was fine. It's serviceable. I appreciate that there's only a couple of types of parts you can get. It doesn't overly complicate things. Like fantasy RPGs do this a lot, where it's like you have 30,000 things you could pick up, but they all equate to 2 or 3 credits of whatever monetary system you have. Whereas this one's like you can sell your grip glove like refill units for energy, because if you don't use the grip glove that much, you won't need those. You can sell energy converters, like the CPU parts, and that's about it. Like, it's like 5 things you can collect, but they don't stack on top of each other, so you need to use your entire inventory for shit, and you have to constantly be selling things.
I had a problem with the loot being randomly generated. So that hallway that I got stuck in, the room before it had a bunch of stuff laying around, and I was really excited the first time because I found like the super duper moneymaker thing that sells for a lot of money, and then I died and realized that all the loot changed. It went from like gun ammo to like just health pickups. It was like it got less and less helpful the more I died.
Yep.
It was terrible.
I think part of that is in the intentional like difficulty what's the term I'm looking for? Like ramp up the game is vaguely trying to go for. But yeah, the RNG part of it is really fucking annoying. Once you finally get the hang of the combat and you basically stop dying outside of really stupid scenarios, which is most of the way through the game, or on repeat playthrough, it doesn't bother you too much. And I don't hate, like, not all of a game has to be like specifically set out parts, but it varies so much where you could be getting a health gel pickup, which is like a quarter of your health bar. It's almost nothing. Or, yeah, you could be getting like the pristine energy converter for 500 credits. It's just randomly sitting there in someone's locker. And I like the simplicity. There's only a certain amount of pickups. They're just kind of there, and you get one pickup from killing an enemy and then breaking their body. I like the rhythm of that. That was part of the game I was able to actually jive with. But the fact that it is RNG means that it's really hard to plan ahead if you keep dying. You have to willpower through this game. And that was my biggest problem. But also simultaneously the reason why I finished it.
It's the Dark Souls of Dead Space.
No, because Dark Souls is willpower and smarts.
Right.
Even though it is mostly willpower because it is fucking miserable, you can still plan things. This game, you have to just do it and 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 do it. Oh, you did it! And like just hope for the best. Because of the way that the game is set up, there are you can't revisit chapters after the game is over. You just have to start a new save file or go to New Game Plus and change the difficulty, which makes sense for the type of gameplay it's going for. It is just annoying when you're trying to get the audio files. The only collectibles in the game outside of like your loot pickups are just audio files from people. You can walk up to a corpse and just rip their fucking memory out, which is kind of cool. Those are the only things. There's maybe 30 or 40 of them in total. They're scattered around. They're fine. I don't hate them, but they are really low quality in comparison to Dead Space's audio logs, which are some of the best audio logs in gaming, next to like fucking the original BioShock ones. Some of the earliest and best audio logs we've ever had. Audio logs have become the laziest thing in gaming right now, and I don't like that because it's my favorite type of pickup. They're good for lore dumping in ways that are slightly more organic. You should be able to play them while you're playing the game, and so on. But in this game, you have to go into the menu, select it, it'll start playing, and then like they're fine. They're produced like okay. They're little vocal bits. But some review I was listening to mentioned this. Almost all of them are post-Outbreak, which doesn't help with the world building of understanding what this place is supposed to be like when it's not falling apart. So
you want to know what some of the worst audio files are?
What?
Halo Infinite.
Shut up. Don't remind me, okay? Don't remind me. Don't remind me. Fuck you. Making my mood worse. It's just really annoying because some of them are okay. The ones about the evil doctor lady and the management of the prison are fine. They make more sense. But the ones that are just random guard. Oh, I tried to close the gate, but we couldn't close the gate, and now I'm dying. Ah! And like, that's it. And it's just a bunch of those. And it doesn't help expand the world building at all. I have all of them because I'm cool like that, but it means you can't revisit levels to go get more of them. And each level like kind of locks you out of backtracking every 15 to 20% of the level's completion. It just hits you with a stone wall of you're stuck here now. On top of that, the save file system is the worst thing I have used in a long time. The game automatically saves every time you go through a big corridor or a combat area or whatever, which is fine. The problem is, if you want to set manual saves, the thing you do in games like this with Dead Space or Dark Souls, something like that, you manually save, you fuck around, you go back to your manual save, and you plan. You can't do that with this game because if you manually save, it only physically saves your geographical location on the map, but not any progress you've made up until that point. So if you say you're at the 20% marker of a level, and then you get a bunch of cool loot, and then you stop right before a save point, but you manually save it, it will, when you boot the game back up, you will be in that same spot, but none of that loot you picked up will be in your inventory. It was the most infuriating part that I had was after my first game session. It was almost 8 hours straight. I was straight ballin', even though this thing fucking sucked. And I saved in the least convenient spot ever, and I had to keep going through the same passages time and time again because I kept dying, but I didn't want to backpedal to go get the loot. So I would get the loot, go against an enemy, and I kept fucking dying. So I was playing the same like 20 minutes, like 10 times, and it was infuriating. So just don't even bother making manual saves, just at all. The save system is completely broken. What else we got? General presentation is okay. It's fine.
It looks really good.
I'll get to that.
Oh.
So the user interface and the internal HUD are okay. They're Dead Space ripoffs. The gun has the ammo counter on it. Your health is just displayed on the back of your neck. Whatever.
Did the main menu work for you?
Sometimes. I was going to get to that under the technical issues I had. The main menu is just like a looping animation of spooky hospital with amputated legs on carts and shit. Like, whatever. It's fine.
Every single time I've pulled the game up, I can hear it moving the selector around.
But the music is not playing and nothing else plays. It's just like the...
No. I can't see the bar.
Really?
I can't see what I'm selecting.
Huh.
I've almost started a new game several times because I think that's the assumption when you pull up the game.
Yeah.
So I've never known if I have to move up to continue a game or what. Like,
Weird.
I cannot see what my
That's really weird.
is.
So my main menu problem was, one, my first few times it load up, it would take forever and it would basically freeze. My problem was I could start my save file or whatever, and none of the audio would be playing, which is more of a technical issue than anything else. But I could, I'd hit my Xbox's guide button, and I could hear the menus whooshing of my Xbox. So, like, I knew my headphones were working, everything was plugged in right. The game just wasn't exporting its audio to my audio output. So I had to reboot the game multiple times sometimes to get the audio running. And this was especially in the first half when I was actually trying to engage with the game's audio and jump scares to try to let it fool me. It was really frustrating a couple of times.
So anyway, back to UI.
The UI is fine, other than that. Like I said, there's a lot of options on the actual menus. It does allow you to make a lot of saves, and something I noticed on my New Game Plus game playthrough is you can go back to the same spot you are and not be on New Game Plus, which I don't know why you would ever want to do it, but I just notice it, because it'll basically have like two save files right next to each other with the same time, like the same timestamp and the same location and the same like objective, but just one isn't New Game Plus. I don't know why you'd ever want to do that, but I'm assuming there's some logic there I just don't know about because I'm not like that. I'm not that special. There's a lot of options. The HUD elements can all be modified. There's really good color blindness options. All of that stuff is really high effort, which I think just the standard for games has been raised a lot on that front, particularly with Xbox and PlayStation putting a lot of their games on PC. And I think that's really good and cool, and I appreciate it, even though I don't usually use most of those settings. Except you can't change controller mapping on this game, like at all. You can change stick inversion, and you can change it to be lefty option, which no left-handed person, meaning me, has ever, and Jacob, has ever wanted to move with the right stick. No one wants to do that.
That'd be weird.
Yeah, it's backward. Like, I've never seen anyone actually want to use the lefty option in a game. And you can't change any of the other controller mapping. Despite the fact that like Xbox Series consoles are like really famous for like having really good controller mapping, this game doesn't let you do shit. So it's unintuitive and backwards control scheme, like smashing the Y button for stuff. Like it just, you're stuck with it. There's no choice. It's fucking weird. The score is okay. It's very horror movie jump scare heavy in terms of its audio. Not because like it's paired well with each individual scare being built up to. It's more like the game randomly plays spooky sounds every 4 seconds on loop, so you're always on edge. And it's not miserable to listen to, but it is boring because it just put me in my butthole's clenched, but my butthole is clenched, but I'm bored at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm on edge, but I'm not like looking for anything. So that was kind of disappointing. Dead Space, again, has one of the best horror movie like OSTs ever. It's really disappointing. The main theme for this game is fucking boring, which just sucks.
And grueling.
Yes.
It just grinds you down.
It repeats itself a lot. Graphically, though, this shit looks hot. I don't like its visual style, is my big thing, is because the world building and the scares are sloppy. I think its art style is also sloppy. There are parts of it that I like. I like some of the creature designs. I like some of the guns and the 3D printer stuff. I don't mind the main armor that the game is kind of sold with. I like the look of the vehicles, but it's really a hodgepodge of stuff, and that bugs me. Because I mostly like sci-fi stuff, incoherent world building really drives me up a wall. And this looks like everything and nothing. The iconography isn't here. It's evoking some other games and some movies, but it doesn't have enough to actually stand on its own. And that is just not good. The graphics, like the quality of the skins and of the actual like texture mapping is really, really good. I'm pretty impressed with the amount of like fidelity on the performances, just despite the fact that it's from what my big saving grace of this thing is they're a really small developer. This was like barely a AAA game by its budget. It was a very small team in comparison to what you'd think they were kind of selling it on. So I feel like they really made the best of it, graphically speaking, that they could. The blood effects are really impressive. The game is sold on being a meat grinder, and the blood sometimes is really silly, but for the most part, if you just beat an enemy to death and then you stomp on their corpse and you like rip it to shreds, the blood splatter effects are pretty fucking good looking, and I think that's pretty cool. The lighting engine was solid. I think that was one of the things that I thought was the most impressive during some of its, not stealth, but like quieter segments towards the later half of the game. When you're starting to go underground, there's a lot of backlit smoke and stuff like that. And I do think, even though the way it's set up is very tropey and very, wow, look, backlit smoke, I bet a creepy crawly's gonna, creepy crawly popped out. Like, it's a lot of that. I do think like the fidelity of it is really impressive. The smoke effects were fantastic. I could never tell when it was like smoke blob. You know, like a lot of games have difficulty with particle effects, where it's like it's a blob or it sticks to things. This just felt really good at managing its different like particle effects really, really well.
I have 2 points. The spikes on the walls react to the bodies really, really well.
Yes.
And then I'd say the only thing I didn't like in the visuals was there were some pretty shitty fire effects.
Yeah. I was going to contrast that with the smoke effects, because the fire is pretty meh.
Oh, it's bad.
It's not horrible in some areas. Some of it's pretty rough. But I think, especially by comparison with the lighting engine, is the way that they do fires are pretty not good.
It looks like 2D fire.
Yeah. I think some of that is because of the way they set up the things that are on fire to be
trying to hide it.
the edge of the battle arena type shit. Like very, when the game wants to limit where you're going, and they'll put the hard wall behind the flame type shit. So it doesn't bother me, but it definitely was the least good looking part of the game. Other tech-wise stuff, the sounds are all very good. They are repetitive. The OST is repetitive, but the fidelity was very good. I was pretty impressed. When I wasn't having sound technical problems with the thing fucking loading, the actual crunchy noises are really good. Each individual enemy has different crunchy noises, and they have different crunchy noises based on the different stages, the way you hit them. When you have different upgrades to your baton, it makes different crunchy beat-up noises. And that was all pretty cool. The different types of meat grinders make different grindy noises, and the enemies have different types of screeches and stuff. There's no coherence as to why each one sounds the way that it does. All the enemies look different from each other, and that's really fucking annoying. But like the fidelity of the recording of the audio quality, I would compare it to Halo 4. Whereas I would defend a lot of the art style choices from, the very contentious Halo 4's art style. A lot of that stuff I will defend on how good it looks. Some of it I completely understand why people didn't like, but the quality of the audio that they put into that fucker was insane. It wasn't as iconic. Some of, the Needler didn't sound like the Needler. Stuff like that. Entirely valid complaints, because especially the original Halos were running on a lot of stock sound effects that they just kind of fucked with. And that's fine. But, like, the quality of the recording and how well they play in the environment was really, really high. And that is definitely here. It's just limited by its variety. So the game...
Did you leave your windows down?
No.
Okay.
The game launched a little buggy, from what I could tell. Actually, wait, no. Roll back. On my New Game Plus, I've had 3 crashes. I had no crashing on my first playthrough. It froze a bit during the main menu, trying to load up save files. But on my New Game Plus, for some fucking reason, it's crashed 3 times and sent me back to the Xbox homepage. No rhyme or reason. Not too many enemies on screen, or the cutscene didn't load. I don't know what the fuck happened. It just did it. It originally launched in a much buggier state. Apparently had a really big day 1 patch that fixed a lot of its tech issues. I think it was about a month after launch, it released New Game Plus mode. So that was not a launch thing. It was free for everyone, which is something. So with like any other New Game Plus, means you finish the game, you can then go, I want to bump up the difficulty, but load in with all the shit that I had at the end of my last playthrough. So you can grind out more upgrades, finish the upgrade tree, stuff like that. It's fine on that front. I can speed through the cutscenes because I can skip all of them. The shimmy tunnels I have no tension for anymore. So like I am speeding through it. I am in the last like levels. I'm basically done with the New Game Plus. So that's fine. It has a couple of skin DLCs, which I think is stupid. They don't look very good to my taste. I don't know why they exist. There was one that was like a day 1 launch bundle for no extra money. It was like 2 skins. There are Dead Space skins, which are valid. I'll say that.
Apparently, Dead Space skins are a very popular thing.
Apparently so. I didn't realize that. But yeah,
you can find YouTube videos of honest-to-goodness research about this.
Fortnite has Dead Space skins.
Of course Fortnite has skins.
But it's Fortnite. It's for children, and Dead Space is traumatizing. So
there's like a freaking Tiger Woods 2001 game that has Dead Space skins.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's very weird. And then there are 2 expansions that are currently out, and there's a 3rd one on the way. The Season Pass gives you access to all of it. The Season Pass is $30. It is, like I said, New Game Plus. There is the Contagion mode, which is effectively New Game Plus, New Game Plus, New Game Plus. So it's hardcore. It's hard difficulty, hardcore mode, and New Game Plus. But there's 15 more death animations, which is cool because the death animations in this game are really gnarly. They get repetitive, but the goopy men shove their fingers in all your orifices and they rip your head off and like all sorts of cool stuff. But there's more of those, which I don't know why you would paywall. Weird. But Contagion mode, it means it reverts back. It's kind of like which skull is it? It's a Halo skull. If you die, you go back to the beginning of the chapter. So fair. It's an additional difficulty modifier on top of just being the hardest of the hardest of the hard with no ammo. So that's locked behind a paywall, which is cringe. There is Riot mode, which is pretty neat. I haven't checked it out yet. I just bought the Season Pass today. It's basically like any game's Horde mode. So like Horde mode from Gears of War or Firefight from Halo 3 ODST. It's just arenas with a butt ton of enemies. You kill as many as possible before you die. That's fine. It shouldn't have been paywalled. That was released about 2 months after launch. And right now, we are gearing up for the story DLC. Because this game ends on a wrap-up and then a cheap cliffhanger. So the story is not complete. And they are locking the only story DLC behind a paywall for another like $10. It seems to be just another chapter, so it's another 12% of the game. Because the game, I won't spoil the whole thing for it, but it ends and it's like, oh no, it's the end of the game, and then it's like, oh no, he's still alive, jump scare, and then the game ends, and it's like, It's really anticlimactic because it undercuts its own ending. It feels really rushed to its ending, but at least the real ending feels like, okay, that's fine, whatever. And then it just has this little like epilogue shit at the end that's like, aha, story teaser, and that's really bad. I did buy it for half off the original season pass price because I was really curious about the Riot and Contagion mode, because I'm kind of on a roll right now with my amount of New Game Plus. So I'm going to try to chew through that as quickly as I can. I bought it for half off. So I bought the season pass for $15, which seems to be a decent value, I will say. For 2 additional story modes and then a DLC, that's okay. But I think those not being included in the game at launch is really, really bad. So on top of the game really being originally planned as a spin-off of another game, and then having all of those connections cut, it was launched incomplete. Not stupidly buggy, but without all of its intended parts, because they were ready to go right after launch to just be sold. So clearly it was intended to be launched with New Game Plus, Hardcore mode, Contagion mode, Riot mode, and some skins, and then the publisher just chopped it up into little bits and then sold it back to me. And that's fucking cringe! In total, I spent about 15 hours on my first playthrough. I am at about 15 hours on my second playthrough. I am being more thorough because I wanted to get all the rest of the audio collectibles, which I have gotten, and I am skipping cutscenes, so that doesn't count as time put in.
That's a lot.
It's bad, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not even offensive. It's just disappointing. It's stinky, like the sewage level, where you climb in the poop tunnels. I'm tired. I want to go home. I want to go home and play more.
Wow.
I try to condense that too. I wasn't even that rambly. There's just a lot.
Thank you for listening.
You know who does ramble? Us. Behind a paywall on our Patreon. If you want to give us money for content you probably should have been given at launch for free, you can go to patreon.com/dimecomicbros network, where we have a bunch of really cool tiers. Colin, one of our buddy that we do the other podcast stuff with, does artwork and cool commissions for all of our patrons. You get shouted out on all of our episodes, so we owe a shout out to Jeff Lawrence and Caitlin. You get stickers, bookmarks, all designed by Colin, the cool art man, cool arty art boy, pretty stuff, good smart man, as well as exclusive clips and segments that we've removed from our podcast, not just to milk it for content.
Oh, they're too spicy.
Typically, it's because they're the hottest of the hot takes, which is saying a lot, because we typically drop some pretty spicy shit. So if anything gets very bizarre or entirely off topic, we'll just cut it out. Every once in a while, I'll randomly review a movie in the middle of a podcast, and those get cut out and thrown on Patreon. As well as that, there are happy hour segments that we do after every podcast, where we crack open a beer, talk business, talk not business, talk about our personal business. Business. Fun stuff. We just shoot the shit, have a laugh, talk about random crap. Who knows? Sometimes it's just audio of Colin picking his nose. You never know.
This month it's gonna be a listicle.
Oh, fuck! I forgot about that! Wait, I can pull it out of my ass. So make sure you tune into our Patreon for me having an aneurysm.
They just heard that.
I'm gonna cut it out and put it behind the paywall. Oh, boy.
Next month is Modern Warfare 2 2022?
Correct.
23?
2022. Yeah.
22s.
Yes, I am playing MW2 2022, the newest Call of Duty. We'll be talking about a thing. Jacob will talk about a thing.
Yeah, I'll play a thing.
He'll play a thing.
I'll probably play Modern Warfare 2 too.
That'll be hot.
That'd
be hot. Unexpected team up.
But I'll also probably play a thing.
Wow. He's so special like that. Please subscribe to our Substack. It is free. It's linked in the description of all of our podcasts. We do little visual recaps alongside all of our pods. We just, condense our thoughts down, add some little visual bits. It's a nice little thingy that I think is nice. And it's free. And it's cool. And it's on email if you're a boomer. So, do it, dumbass. We also have regular social media stuff, Twitter and Instagram for updates, teasers, and whatnot. We are, at the moment, when this episode goes up in this neck of the woods, we will be kind of consolidating all of our stuff under one account for everywhere. It's just going to be Dime Comic Bros Network or DCB Network or something along those lines. The description will have updated links, so just follow those, please, and thank you. Next month hopefully will be less painful for me.
Colin is Wario.
But yeah. God damn it, I am Mario, aren't I? You are Luigi.
I was thinking I was Yoshi.
I ride you? Fucking gay, dude. You said it.
You're Toad.
Why would I be fucking Toad?
No, you're Donkey Kong. You're Donkey Kong for sure.
Well,
you would make the cart look so small.
Oh my gosh.
You'd have your knees up by your ears as you're trying to drive it.
Probably. Come on, where is it?
Yeah, you're Donkey Kong. I'm Yoshi. Colin's in the corner wah, fuck you! It keeps cracking. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you.
You have the snail inside your head is whispering very aggressively to the brainworms chewing on your brain. The big cauliflower inside the skull.
I don't understand. No. Wow. Ooh. Maybe I should drink.
That's, the answer to my problems.
My voice. Yeah. Whoa, look at that.
Yeah.
Finally.
Hot. Potatoes.